Alrighty, we are live. Welcome back, guys. Good evening to Europe and the rest of Central Europe, and probably good day to America. It's about lunchtime for you guys, a little bit after, I think. Saturday, but you should be off, so that's good. Welcome back, guys. We got a couple of cool things planned. I hope sound, music, all those things are good. Let me know if not. Of course, had some technical issues before I started. Things that didn't matter, technical stuff. But we are back. We got a couple of cool questions, real cool ones. Of course, also live ones are always appreciated. Same as last week, or last time, episode 2 now. We're doing the same layout, more or less. Until you guys have other ideas, I'm happy, open for other stuff as well. So we're gonna be starting with my training and those kind of things. So double. Okay. That's so good. Echo. All right. More technical stuff. That's fun. Because it's not fun, or it's secondary. Maybe I can fix this on the fly. Is that better now? Test. Put this one down. A little bit. Sorry, some technical stuff. Classic. Yep, I think we got it. And my camera also decided to jump in. Right? Okay. Good, we're back. So, this never happened. We're gonna cut this out since it's live. Absolutely not possible. Let's get into it. So, we're gonna start out with the training. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me know. We're gonna start out with the training, something that happened and some things that I learned again. And then we're gonna go into questions. Got a couple of cool ones coming. And yeah. So. USA, you lost me, Brian. I don't know, Brian. But let's go to the other one. Okay. Okay, we're back, I believe. I think, to be honest, there was some internet issues here. Sound should be there now, at least to my microphone. It says it's there. The rest should also be there. Alright, so, I hope technical issues for the day over. Go, let's go into training. No more. Let's have a look here. Music's less, no problem. We get that one down. Quite the day, huh? Let's hope we are set now. If not, let me know. Okay, let's have a look at the training. If not, give it a shout out. Can you see the screen? All those things? I hope so. Okay. All right. So, if not, just let me know, right? I can see your guys' comments. So, we had last week's block. This week's block was a bit of a roller coaster, a bit of a live stuff going on. So we had end of last week. Again, most of you guys know I have a 10-day block always. So 7 days of a proper load where I have all the quality in that I want to, and then I have the 8th day completely off.
something I changed. I had for years as well 7 days straight. I had, when I was working, 1 day off. I'm pretty sure I had almost all the rhythms out there that are common. But okay, so yeah, it's good. Thanks for the feedback. I can put it a bit down. Maybe like this. Hopefully a little bit better. No screaming in your ear. Okay. Put it a bit down. So if not, let me know. So then what I had, maybe some of you guys saw it in the last video. Hey Chris, nice to have you back. I did a nice bike fit with Matt Bottrell. He's kind of a specialist for time trial. I think that was just before our last stream. That was pretty good and fixed a lot of things. I put some of the things in video, but I'm really curious to just go out on the road, which will be a little bit still for me. It's about maybe, yeah, still a few weeks until the weather is good enough to do that. And then I should be back. Okay, now a little bit up again. But bike fit was really good. Then, you know, the 2 days afterwards, still good. I recovered well. But I started to feel, no, actually that was really good, to be honest, because you could see as well, for example, also with glycogen depletion. That's one thing you can see easily in the gym when you do gym work. And I have here on this day, for example, that is the 10th day of my block. So just before I hit the gas again, it's a little bit activation, because otherwise if you have 3 days more or less completely easy, yeah, you're basically shutting off your bodies, at least shutting off a little bit. So you need some activation, especially if you have a hard swim the next day, because as I said, swimming, I believe, is first and foremost like a biomechanical thing, less, I mean, also of course fitness and cardio, but I think on number one is always the technical side of it. Technical is the wrong word, because then people think about drills. That's not the one. I mean the side of, can you put your joint in a certain position? For example, the Soon Youngs or the top swimmers, Michael Phelps, when it comes to shoulder mobility. That's one thing I learned here, and I want to share with you guys as well. I did before, it's a very common exercise for like the rotator cuff. Most of you guys probably know it. You take 2 dumbbells, low weight. It's not about, you know, high weights per se. And you probably know this one, rotate out and push overhead. Very common, nothing, it works magic, but I did that. But then I was thinking, wait a second, why do I stop here? Because it's a common exercise, it's not necessarily made specifically for swimming. Why do I stop at this angle? And then just while doing it, I thought, that makes no sense. In swimming, I want basically when my arm, it's a really awkward position when you think about it, because swimming is not, it's a mobility sport, right? So you see the swimmers, they have incredible mobility, and you also, I think, to be honest, you can do a lot on dry land. For example, a lot of coaches want, okay, put your arm and you put your hand here and your arm there in this position, the catch there. But if you can't do it on dry land, for example, one thing you have to do, and that's why people see the top swimmers and have this beautiful high elbow in those positions. But think about it, if you can't do it in dry land, also in the gym, let's say, you have zero chance, no matter what you want to do in the water and how many drills you do. And even if you swim 50K a week, it makes no difference. So, for example, and back coming to the thing, what I started doing then, and I had today, the feeling in the water was again completely different because of range. So I just took 2.5 kilos, not dumbbells actually. I had the plates because that helps to stabilize the wrist as well, and like general for shoulder stability. So I went from here and just at one side, and then, you know, all the way down, like freaky much down. I mean, here I had a bit of a bike accident in the past, so that's a bit my side where I lack mobility quickly. So this side is better. I mean, I did handle before, but you can see right now. And you know, the important thing is that your shoulder blade doesn't go up like this, right? It has to come from the shoulder joint, glenohumeral joint, from that one, because that one needs to be mobile enough when you think about it. Again, all practical thinking. When you go in the water and you have the front of the stroke, think about it, the high elbow has to come in such an awkward position for your shoulder, so unnatural. You're not going there with, I don't know, very few sports. So think about it, you have to go from here, and then you gotta have an internal rotation like that, gently, in order to have the elbow here. And if you can't do that, and I mean, I worked on mobility for a long time, but this one now, again, is a big changer. So it's not about strength per se, it's about activation, but if I would, there's for example on physio exercise, maybe some guys from you that had shoulder problems know this one. It's called sleeper stretch. So you lay kind of on your side and you do this passively with your arms. You kind of push it down and push your arm in this internal rotation. The thing is there, you're building basically mobility, which is good, But when you then go in the water, you will most likely feel really sluggish and weird because your body, and especially nervous system, because the capsule in the joint and all those things, they are unfamiliar with this position. So you need to teach the body and the brain basically, hey, wait a second brain, we got a new angle here, but you also need to teach the muscle and again, nervous system, how to work in that new angle. So if you're just doing mobility and swim the next day, you'll feel probably pretty horrible because all your tension is gone. You might have new things going on with mobility. So I don't want to talk too much. Take 2.5 kilos or 1 kilo if you want to, and do side by side and go slowly down and don't stop here. Again, we need the angle for internal rotation, right? Remember. So go all the way down, but important that your shoulder doesn't drift up. Then you kind of compensate with, you kind of making space. You want it to come first and foremost from the shoulder joint. So once you see it going up, just go back up again. So what we also do is you strengthen the rotator cuff, the internal, external rotators, both super important. So the fancy words that rotate the shoulder in and outward, you strengthen them in some weird angles. You could also go as far, that's why I have on dry land before I swim also with the bands. I do that, and there's also a drill, Popovich drill they call it, when you basically do not sculling, but like you do this in the water, which is good, but if you don't have the range, it's useless. So I do on dry land before I get in the water as well, always with the bands, that I get this weird angle just as an activation here. Because think about it, you want to have internal rotation and catch, and gentle. Again, this is not an area you want to produce force, because if you do produce force, you push straight down, force goes not this way where you want to swim, it goes the other way. So highly recommend the exercise, just something like 3 times 10 to 15. Again, it's not a strength exercise per se, mobility, but also build kind of neuromuscular perception, or what are you going to call it, in that new range. And I did that 2 days ago, and today I felt, or even each time I was swimming, incredible. I felt like my shoulders were oiled in a new sense. So this could help you a lot for a really good catch, I believe. Then I started easy ride, nothing fancy here, some cadence work, also neuromuscular, a bit activation, nothing crazy. But I started doing my homework. I always put this in. Everything you kind of want to do, put this in your training peaks, at least works for me. It's kind of like a work calendar. I always did this even before. Anything that was sport related while I was working, I put in there, right? I had the premium account from Training Peaks, and you can put it in there. You can make notes, you can make goals. There's a new setting that's really new. I can briefly show you. There's this new thing only with Training Peaks Premium. You can make goals, and then you can say, hey, for example, eat more carbs on each day, or whatever is important. If it's something you're failing at, what is usually your weakness, and you know it's important to you, but it's annoying to remember. You don't want to make a note outside of this. So if you look in this, and Training Peaks is kind of its own world regarding training, I think it's a good place to put this in. And then you have your goals here, for example. Now it's failed because it's a few days ago. It says red, and otherwise just boom. It's also studies proven that doing these little, forgot the name for it, but that it helps and gives a little OCD kickback. So anyways, the days after, they were interesting because I was gonna start with 2 times 100, 4 times 75, 10 times 50 as a VO2 set. I stay at 1,000 meters total for VO2. I don't believe more is needed. From a physiological sense, yes, but why would I do 1,500 meters at work at, let's say, 110 when you're too slow? It's kind of, doesn't make sense. I feel like VO2, if you're not in the ranges to be in the front, rather swim less and more of that than doing the physiological thing. Because why would I want to be efficient at 110 if that's the fastest I can go? Like, I need to have 28-second takeout speed for 50 or quicker. I mean, if you have the Vincent Lewis out there, I think he's going to pop at 26 probably easy. So if you can swim 28, you have no chance. Doesn't matter what your threshold is. So anyways, I did then, was going to do, I can tell you now why not, 2 times 100, 4 times 75, and 10 times 50. Why this set? Funnily, actually, when I listened to the podcast, it's a really interesting one. Again, the most recent one about swimming from the Triathlon nerds will know, from Olaf Alexander Blue. They have a really amazing podcast. I believe if all of us had a coach with the same level of care and intensity that Olaf works for only 2 athletes, because for Christian and Cool stuff. If we all had a coach like that who brings the full package, I think all of us would be on a different planet. But the energy he puts in, obviously, is very difficult to do. But I think he's a very interesting character. He brings the whole package. Also the mental side, because mostly when it comes to scientific brains, I feel they're sometimes limited with the emotional side, or the dreamer, no limits mentality, let's say, because they're so in their numbers. But he brings the whole package because he was an entrepreneur before, had to learn this dream mentality and sold his business. And anyways, long story short, he talked about the same thing that I'm doing now. So it's quite funny to see it's more like objective reassurance. I kind of know it works, but he has another system basically using the foam goggles as an objective measurement with stroke rate. But what I basically did is subjective, because I'm always going through subjective feelings. So for example, we can check the last time I started doing the hundreds the first time after a month practicing the 50s. So it was the block before, and there I did, I did 5 times 100 and 10 times 50. I thought, okay, I start 5 times 100, see where I'm at, because 2 months ago I set some borderline delusional goal, or 3 months ago now, and I'm not a swimming background, and I struggled to hold 120 1.5 years ago, and I said I want to swim 10 times 100 at 105 pace. Why 105? Because I know Jan Frodeno swam 63, 65 seconds, or basically that pace for VO2, so I thought if I can do that, I should be objectively in a good place to start with. So I started going my first, after 2 months, just practicing with 50s, getting the rhythm, and I started to feel, okay, I got better there. I started to go from 50s straight to 100s, which is double the distance. Not the best idea per se, because think about it, if you do a 20k run, you wouldn't start a 40k run. It's a little bit the same, because again, swimming is so difficult when it comes to biomechanics and maintaining that. And it kind of showed, because what did I do? I did the first in 105, 106, 107. So I did 3 actually in that range. Again, only because of delusional goal setting, and no other reason. If I would have said, oh, I just want to swim my best, I would have done them at 110 now. So the only reason is because of the focusing on mechanics and kind of the swim brain that I'm using. And then the time started to drop to 110, 112, 115. But you could say, shit, the time stopped. But while I was swimming, I knew what was happening. So either I could say I have this foam goggles. Okay, Olaf Blue uses the foam goggles in a sense, okay, let's say you do 100 intervals. After 50s, you start to blow up. In the foam goggles, you would see, it's like a screen, and you could see, for some of you that don't know, you can see basically your stroke rate is going up, which means your body's trying to do something else with cadence basically to maintain the same speed, but efficiency, distance per stroke is going out the window. So long story short, it's basically the same I felt, except in short is my arms were starting to fail. After 50 meters, I could feel this part, what I talked about, I could feel I was muscular-wise failing. As if you're in a gym doing a bench press, I was like, I could feel I was in this part after 50 meter, strength was out the window. I could almost not control this, and that led then to the times dropping. So I managed to do 3 in that range, 105, 106, 107. That means for my set the next week, instead of saying again, let's do again 5 times 100 and then swim out of the 5 times 2 at low quality, meaning after 50 meter you blow up muscular-wise, I decided to go for 2 times 100. I knew I could do that at high quality. Instead of dropping down to 50 meter right away, I do 4 times 75 meters, because that's probably something I can just hold muscular-wise. It's basically like in a gym building weights. It's more or less the same. Of course, you have several parts, but if you think just on a muscle limiting side, which wouldn't be the case, and then I went to 50s. I can always crank out okay 50s. It's a 30-second interval. That is kind of the lowest I would go. I could even go shorter to 25s. Whatever I gotta do in brackets, same for you. Whatever you gotta do in swimming to maintain the highest possible quality, do that. So that's very broad to say, but I don't know. A couple of guys approached me on Instagram as well. I've been helping them out with some tips there. So if you guys have some questions, I'm happy to share. Anyways, what I did then, I made a note as well. Then I came to hard decisions. I woke up and I felt muscular-wise, because I always try to determine the 2 different things. From a muscular side, basically muscle glycogen or energy, muscular energy, basically like, could you lift this table right now? Like strength-wise, how did you feel? Also when I started swimming, felt very good. Very well activated from the gym. I feel like on that front, I could smash also reps. I was ready on that front. But even waking up, I woke up with a lot of extra fatigue. And that was not normal, because 2 days before, even after my off day, I felt like I'm ready to train again. I'm ready to tilt it again. So I was already fresh 2 days before, and I had 2 easy days, and I did keep them easy and not do like, oh, there, I smashed it a bit. So why suddenly, that makes no sense on paper, it wasn't training related. So something else caused this extra system fatigue. I noticed when I woke up, I noticed I'm pretty tired. And I also have this every morning, I fill it out. It's not just HRV and things, because they take 2 days to react, to be honest. Well, it's not just that, but I have one thing that I can advise you. That's probably the biggest one I have. I have a few metrics in here that I fill out each morning. I can show you a little bit. It's this little thing here. Basically like this. I made it like this with an Excel on my phone, so I always have it mobile with me. I have RPE from the day before, sleep hours, nap time from the day before to keep me accountable, fatigue level 1 to 10, I give it a scale, motivation, there I do kind of a light system, so green, yellow, red. My motivation, my mood, my sleep quality, my anxiety level. Anxiety level is for me important because when anxiety is high in the morning, so I would give it a yellow flag in the morning, that has to do with me with diet. That means I messed up the day before the calorie intake. So it's a clear relation with me. So before I thought, even when I was working, I thought it's psychology, but make sure the body is first in a good state before you start going to the mind. But it's very common for us to just immediately drift to any kind of life problems we have. First, fix the body. So eat, sleep, drink. Then diet is at a green, yellow. Training intensity day before. For example, if I had a very hard day, like 2 VO2 max session, this would be red to know, okay, is it supposed to be today like this? Then resting heart rate, temperature, the Oura ring shows temperature, pretty good for detecting sickness. HRV, average heart rate for the night. And now comes interesting, I have TSB in ATL, it's like the training peaks data also in there, but that's not what I mean. The interesting one I would recommend for you to try is immune system scale. For me, to be honest, I have like a button basically I can check. I have a lymph node here, and everybody has a lymph node everywhere, but for some reason I have this one that I feel really well. It's like almost like a pulse. And I feel that, and I also make like a check kind of for a second, go within myself. What would I rate my immune system? I have it in percentage from 0 to 100%. So normally, if I'm really feeling healthy, I give it a 90, 95. 100 is, I don't know, but 90, 95, let's say with training fatigues, that's kind of 10 out of 10 basically, or like really good. Then when I'm drifting to 75, could be like related to fatigue, but that morning I gave myself a 60% immune system. I felt a little bit compromised. In some way, I didn't feel 100% right. And normally, the way I felt in the water, the way my muscles were activated, even 3 months ago, even especially with a coach, because coach put that system in, I would have done it. I promise you, I would have smashed out that session and I would have gotten so sick. Because later that day, my wife also said she started sniffing and had a little bit of something. Then I also heard from another guy in the pool, there's a massive wave of sickness coming right now. He was just 4 days vomiting straight and a lot of stuff coming. So I was like, whoop, I had to back up. And I did basically now 3 days, just walking 2 times a day, just really just movement, once a 1,000-meter swim just by feel, and once just a walk and some gym mobility and a bit activation, until I feel like again my immune system like today was again at 85. So I lost per se 3 days. I didn't lose it, that's the thing, I didn't lose it because I stopped. That was very difficult. I wouldn't have done it in the past, I promise you, because it's very hard to do without having something objective to look at. Because I felt good, I could have smashed it. And now I did shit basically. I didn't get sick, I didn't lose anything, I didn't improve in those 3 days. So you could say, oh, I lost 3 days. No, I see this as a clear win. The whole world got sick, everybody got sick, and I didn't. So that is a massive W in my book. Today again, I was back to, what did I give myself today? I got 75% in immune system. So my body had to go through it, fighting a little bit, but I didn't get sick. The immune system could ditch it because I didn't go to the well in training. If I would have pushed the training in those 3 days, 110%, I would have been sick. Like many athletes I know, many people I know, it's always in waves. As you know, right now Finland has a massive wave of sickness coming. So as an athlete, you're basically right up there with elderly, to be honest, because you're pushing your immune system to the max. because you're training, working, before work, so you are in that risk group. So very hard to make those decisions, especially if you're driven, especially if you work. It was just as hard for me when I worked than now. Now probably even harder, but at that system, I could look at it objectively. So you could do something like that as well. Just make an objective Excel for yourself, make yourself something, even you don't have to do as many metrics as me, but maybe just do like 3-4 metrics, something like that. And then you're good to go. All right, so I think that's interesting enough. I'm leaving tomorrow for a trip for 4 days. I already planned my next days here. For 4 days to Finland, to northern Finland. So it's like a little holiday trip we had planned for 3-4 months already, where I thought before, should I do this, should I not? But I need some kind of little mental freshen up. It's just 4 days. I do some aerobic training there, not pushing it too much, just ticking over. And then, we go into the Ironman block and the proper preparations. Got to keep everything somewhat in balance. All right, I think we are going over to the questions. Okay. Gotta let me know if anything changed, sound or music, anything's funky. You let me know. Okay, so let's go at the questions here. Let's have a look. We got we can just start with Philip right here. Philip. Can you talk a bit about your 10-day block approach, please? How do you structure the block? Do you recommend for age groupers with normal jobs to usually do the long ones on the weekends? First of all, with coaching advice and general advice, I'm always very careful in a sense, because a little story to that. There's one pro cycling team, Bora Hansgrohe, some of you guys maybe know it. That cycling team is okay, like this, a little bit better maybe. Okay. Test. Okay, maybe like this. Should be better. Okay, so when it comes to that, so there's basically a cycling team that has 5 different coaches and lots of elite athletes, 5 elite athletes. They all have their individual coach, and those guys are having completely different approaches, and all of these guys at the top world class. Just to say, there's many ways to go to Rome. So as you can see, even in Carbon Pro Sports, there's many ways to do this. So the reason I say this now is 10-day training block for age groupers. I think difficult, because you have your normal work week, you have weekends, you want to have social engagements. That's something that was in my mind when I did this, to be honest, because my weekend and relation to day is completely changed. It's basically gone now, right? Because it doesn't matter to me if it's Monday or whatever, it's day one in a training block. So I would not recommend a 10-day for age groupers if you're working. I don't think it's a good idea. But I would recommend, that's something I probably didn't do enough. I mean, long run in the weekend, not even necessarily. When you think about it, the long run is mostly a low intensity session. Of course, if you run 3 hours, okay. But think about it, you should more in the long run. You have the most mental freshness. You have no work. Of course, you're a bit tired from work, but on Saturday, Sunday, to pump out a quality session that's going to require a lot of mental focus is better, let's say, than to do it on, it again, it depends, right? It's individual to the person, but if it's something really challenging that costs a lot of energy for you, mental energy, if you do that, let's say after a long day on a Tuesday, it's your hardest day, and then you do it, probably a lot tougher than on the Saturday. But again, you have to find the classic model is, of course, long ride, Saturday, Sunday, long run. Nothing wrong with that. It definitely works, but find what works for you, Philip. But 10-day, I wouldn't recommend. Difficult when you work. Then I got here from Iron Life a question. The last 2 active recovery days at the end of the block. He wants to have a look at that. Let's quickly go back here. Okay, so quickly into that again. So my last 2 days, those are this year. So there I first have a 3K swim, which is easy and drills. So just a couple of drills, and then just easy quality strokes. I make a note for myself here as well that all easy. Let muscles and nervous system recover, number one goal. Because if I feel good on those sessions, you just put an extra 20% out because you feel good, right? And if you do those on all days, you're actually not in recovery mode per se. So it takes a lot of discipline, even when you're feeling good, to hold back. Because 2 days later, you're gonna tilt it in that long swim where I really tried to delete my arms and like upgrade basically. So important to really keep it easy. Then I have a run by feel even. It's zone 1, length also dependent on energy. And I don't even look at heart rate or anything. I just go by feel and go easy. Then I have a long mobility reset. So that is day 9. Long mobility reset, that means the ones that work best for me to reset mobility after a week of hard training, because you get stiff from cycling, especially if you want to swim well, you need a lot of mobility. So lat stretch, hanging, cobra, ankle mobility, sitting on feet, those kind of things, especially. Then, okay, Brian, I'll go into that in a sec. Then we got here the Tuesday, so it's basically day 10, my second active recovery day. There again, 3K. I could easily put 4K in there, right? I could do it without an issue, but it takes just a little bit more calories, a little bit more energy, a little bit more mental energy, because the day afterwards is the one. I have 2 swims a week, basically 3, but 2 where you really try to like tilt it. Chrissy, this is Training Peaks. It's a program. You can Google that, Training Peaks. It's very common among triathletes. It's a really good one. You get all the details in there. So a couple of drills, a couple of swimming. There, on that day, you need some activations. As I said, the day after, I tilted with VO2 max swims. So if I have 1 day off and 2 days just easy swimming, more difficult to then, even if I do a proper warm-up in the key swim the day after, some activations. So I do 6 times 50, actually with fins, for good reason, because again, each week I learn. Before the week I didn't do it with fins. Fins are actually a genius, mainly for kick timing, so you learn that, because fins, you can't really kick from the knee. You have to, because they say, why, if they're long enough, you have to do this quick flip, and it really activates your quads in a nice way that you get this little tick. So some activations, 6 times 50 with 10, 15, 20, 25, sprint, and then some aerobic swimming. Then, as I said, the gym set, we did it earlier with some short plyometrics and a little bit of gym activations, just 2 sets, that's important. I don't want to be too tired, but activated. And then some easy cadence work with aero shrugs, that's new. So 4 times 10 minutes cadence, all in aero, of course, 95, 100, 105, 110 RPM. Those are my 2 active recovery days. Let's go back. Good. Then Scott Connolly asked, coaching philosophy, how it differs for myself versus to my athletes? How far in advance do I plan training blocks? For the athletes I coach, it's just, again, a couple of handful. It's important that I give them the energy they deserve and that I also retain enough energy to go after my chapter. Because I know if I have 20 athletes, which eventually I could, I will probably help them so much that I have no energy left to do my own journey. So I am very aware of who I work with and my philosophy. So some of you guys knew with the rhythm, 10-day rhythm doesn't apply to age groupers. Some things apply, but again, the reason you would, for example, think, then I let the age groupers also do a VO2 max all the time and things. That doesn't make any sense to me, because the thing is, there's no ideal training plan for anyone, from anyone. Nobody can write you an ideal training plan. More important than the system, because I was always in the past with coaches fanatics about the system. This coach here uses the Brett Sutton system. I gotta have a piece of that, and I did that. This coach has a bit of this, so I did that. That is important, of course, but more important is that it's individual to you. For example, why would I send, again, physiologically, I let the athletes do some testing, not per se physiology testing in a lab, because it's, of course I could, but it's very expensive. There are easy ways to do this. One is, for example, AeroTune. It's a company, you can do it all online. It's power-based. You can do it for running and cycling. AeroTune, you can check the website. Costs 25 euros, and then you get up to 1 to 2% accurate to the lab results with your VO2 max, VLM max, all the zones, fat max pace was important, threshold, everything you can wish for. So that I do, and then I see the profile of the athlete with the VO2 max and VLM max. And from that, you can really easily say, okay, what does this person need? So for example, athlete A has a, let's say running, I have an athlete, he's really good at 4 minutes, can crank out 3:30 pace, but then he will struggle really in a long run to keep the heart rate low. So depending what that person needs. At this stage, I need VO2 max work. That is the most bang for buck. You can also calculate that with simulations in the AirTune software. I did that. Okay, didn't do that together here. And with the proof kind of why I do VO2 max, you can put it in. For example, you can do simulations. You can put your test in there. You could even do race simulations, basically, with the course, official Ironman courses, gives you prediction of time with your CTA, rolling resistance. You can everything in there. Really cool. Okay, let's stick on this here. So it differs. Does the coaching philosophy differ between myself and athletes? Yes, quite a lot. Sessions are often the same, just a bit buttered down to a more suitable level, depending which level they're at. And how far in advance do I plan training blocks? 2 weeks ahead, no more. And I check it every day and adjust the next week in quality up or down, depending on life load of the athlete. And we have a call every 2 weeks. Then Key M asked, regarding one-on-one coaching, how personalized I get with my athletes. My methodology is similar to my athletes. So it's kind of the same question a little bit. So yeah, very individual, handwritten programs. Depends what that person needs in physiology right now to move forward. Some people need VO2 max. Some people need aerobic conditioning and bring the VLMX down. Whichever one drives the needle up most. You can do that with the calculations, as I said. So as an example, for example, with me, I need to get my VO2 max to 75, around that range right now, depending on which sport it's not. And run it was 69, 68, something like that. So I need to have at least 75 for Ironman in order to win Kona, let's say. And that also will produce speeds around sub 30-minute 10K, some in that range. I don't need actually higher per se. Then the VLMX is more important, basically fat burning, in order to maintain the pace, depending bike run. But for me, for example, if I would increase my VO2 max by 10, so for example, let's say it's 55 and you put it to 65, right? Threshold increases by 40 watts. You can do it as a simulation. Then again, let's take 6 weeks to improve that, okay? Or alternatively, let's do VLA max from 0.5 to 0.4. What would happen to my threshold? And then it only goes up 10 watts. So with those simulations, you can kind of butterproof, see what happens, what speeds you get out of it, and which athlete profile you want to create. Then Letty asked, my husband and I, we noticed you had the Magic 5 goggles. Could you give a quick review on them, on how you like the process of getting them fitted? More importantly, do they work with no leaks? Yes, I started switching to them 2 years ago. I had a TYR before, they sold out, and I looked for something that was, important, not leaking, not pressuring, and they do work. They do work. I like them. It's really easy to, I think you have to do a 3D scan like that once, then it's in your profile. And the good thing is you don't have to put so much pressure behind the band. That's something I really like personally. With other goggles, even, you probably remember the time, some of you 5 years ago, everybody had those white sock ones, socks, the white ones with the black. Every triathlete on earth, including me, had those. Some of you guys have been in the sport a while, they probably know those ones, and they always came off when I dived in, always. So those don't, which is important to me, and I can see everything. That was something that I liked with the TYR before, and I looked for similar ones. Some goggles, for example, Forum, I bought them right away when they came out. I looked for every detail, and I would never wear them because I couldn't see anything in them. If you're swimming in a group and there's a move happening in front, I don't know if they changed them, but I had the first model and I could see nothing through them. You have no visibility, so I would not get them. Maybe they changed them and they have a newer model, but the first model they made, I bought that for $250 and I ditched it pretty quick because I couldn't see a thing. And that's important. Magic 5 goggles, you can see the side even. So for example, even when in a pool line, when you're swimming straight, you can see the side. Vision is important, right? You're swimming in open water. It's mad water, so you gotta see. Doesn't matter how well you swim. You don't know where you're swimming. So yes, like them, and no leaks. They do fog up sometimes, like any goggles. That's the only thing. They fix that with a spray, or you take normal, like the dishwash stuff. But they also have some spray. You just leave that overnight, and then you have at least for 2 weeks no fogging up. So good. Then Tom. Tom has a long question. Tom has a few questions. Let's quickly go here into the comments again to keep you guys here as well. Brian asked, are you doing anything this point in training specifically to prepare for Oceanside? Not yet per se. So I have these 2 rhythms I rotate through. I have this once rhythm I rotate through year round. And for me at this point, biggest bang for buck until I have 75 VO2 max and the thresholds I kind of need in order to have this limit. I need to rotate through this to get to this VO2 max level. And best to improve VO2 max is quality, also volume, of course. And then I rotate into a specific phase, and I'm not yet in a specific phase. I'll start, because that's now a few weeks out still. So after this little holiday, I will start with the Ironman specific phase, and then I will have for sure 2 weeks before more quality work towards 70.3 tailored. So not just yet in it, but soon. Then here, Wigo asked, was he to have the same body type? And if I remember right from earlier uploads, same weightish. What kind of wetsuit would you recommend for using with a bit broader shoulders? Not a wetsuit specialist. More important for me, what I learned, ratio and buoyancy. Yeah, that's actually a big one. Wetsuits, I didn't think would be so important. I always bought the best ones out there back then, right? I was like having the best hoop one and like I was just thinking about shoulder flexibility, to be honest. And what I know from now, all the top end suits have very good shoulder flexibility. Used to be an issue on wetsuit. I don't think it's an issue anymore, to be honest. I think they're all more or less on the same level. But now comes the thing that for me was an issue. So I started out as a non-swimmer. So I had back then the Orca 3.8 or something, and I had a lot of buoyancy. I was thinking, man, you got to get your legs up. You don't swim so well. As much buoyancy as possible. That worked. Then I got better over the years. What changed is my alignment. So I got actually better at my alignment. And that's what happened. I had, for example, the hoop one, the ultimate model, whatever there, and it has so much buoyancy at the hip and the core that it lifted me too much. So that if this is my core and this is my head, it had to be lifted my hips to a point that I felt like I'm swimming downhill. It was so awkward. So the only one I found that doesn't have that is the Orca. I mean, sure, maybe there are other ones out there, but I tested back then the Roca, Sailfish, and the Hoop, and they all have quite a few bit of buoyancy, even the elite ones. Again, that's 2 years ago now. But the Orca one I got has, that's something to look for you. That's all I'm saying. Test those things, swim them, and know what kind of swimmer you are. If you want this type of buoyancy, which most people want, okay. If you have very good alignment, it might actually hinder you. I swam slower with the buoyancy ones. So I need the one with little buoyancy, because then my hip is actually in the right alignment. Otherwise I'm too high, and I'm like feeling like awkward, like I'm falling downhill basically. Yes, that's to wetsuit. Tom. Tom asked, hi, I have a busy working schedule and I find it really difficult to get the training in. I'm trying to my best to get minimal work done, but I'll trust that my experience and focus on zone 2 will do the job. Here are some questions for the Q&A. Favorite music to get pumped to? Very easy. Avicii live concerts. There are some really good ones on YouTube. You should check them out. New York 2012 or something. I have a couple of good ones. Avicii live concerts. They will do it for me. If you do only one session per discipline a week, what would it be? Again, now you say what I would do. That is, then I give you an answer based on my physiology at this point. What I know is my weakness. Those I would do. Again, the same thinking should be for you. What is your physiology weakness? And everybody thinks, oh, physiology is so fancy. I need a lap, I need lactate. No, it's pretty damn simple. The simplest thing, not simple, but the simplest thing I ever heard, I heard that in a podcast and I never forgot, is, for example, if I would ask you right now, as the easiest physiological test in the world, he called it. If I would ask you right now, in this moment, would you rather do, if you had to, gun to the head, would you rather do a 2-hour long run at low intensity or 4 times 4 minutes on a track full tilt? If somebody told you. One person, I would answer 2-hour long run, because you always choose the easy route by nature, let's say. And that gives an indication of your physiology. And the other person who likes to just tilt it again, high VLA max, VO2 max maybe okay, but bad fat burning, not so good at marathon. Those guys will say 4 times 4 minutes, full gas. That gives you a good indication of your physiology in that sport. That means you're kind of a sprinter type. That means you will benefit much more from endurance instead of doing the things you would like to do. Because you probably, if you're 4 times 4 minutes on a track smash, You don't like your long run. You say, oh, this is so boring, so lame. But deep down, you know you're not so good at it. You can't keep the heart rate low. It probably spikes quick. It rises quick. Yeah, so that's the thing. And do what your physiology needs at this point and this point of the season. Have fun with swift racing or stick to the planned zone 2 rides. Again, it depends on your motivation. Swift racing I find extremely intense, so there's a cost for that. That could be basically your high-end session for the week. It's a bit unspecific, but if it helps your motivation during the winter months, do it. But know that swift racing is an intense time. Okay, so then we got brick workouts to replace the long runs in the weekends as heck for busy people. Oh, I loved my hacks, to be honest. I was looking for all the hacks. I was going low carb, and we all think the hacks of endurance sport, if I just do this, if I get this watch, it's gonna work. And the hacks don't exist in endurance sport. So I don't think they're hacks, and brick workouts instead of long runs, I couldn't give you an answer for you. I don't know your physiology. What is your weakness? It depends. What is your goal in sport? If your goal in sport is just enjoy it and just have fun, exercise, have fun in the sport, if that's your goal, do anything that is fun. If you don't like a session, kick that out immediately. Out. If your goal is exercise, health, and just enjoying the sport, a bit next to it as a hobby, do whatever's fun. If you hate a session, immediately delete it. Makes no sense. It's not your goal. But if your goal is to push performance and have any big number goals, or if you're that kind of type, which most triathletes are, you got to look yourself in the mirror with your coach or alone. What do you suck at? I suck at VO2 max. Really bad. Didn't do it for years. Don't enjoy it. Really hard. I do those and I get massive gains. I could just do long and endurance stuff all the time. I'm good at it. I could do 6 hours now on the bike without food. I would have a good time. But give me VO2 max intervals, I struggle. That's why I do it. Tips to stay focused during long rides. If it's indoors, well, some good podcasts, music, and shows. But if you're outside, I would say take caffeine and sugar. When you're outside, the number one goal above your session becomes safety. That you arrive back home with your loved ones in one piece. We have just a helmet and nothing else. And that is number one priority. Never ever forget that. I see so many people in their air bars going 40k an hour through villages. Those are the people who are completely black clothing. I like the style as well of completely black. It looks stylish. But those guys that wear completely black, or even some brands only sell completely black, I think it's a crime. They should not be allowed to do that. Those people that ride completely black, with a black bike, black helmet, they never had a crash, and they are very naive. Because I had a bad crash, very, very bad crash, and I could have ended in a very bad way. When I went sent to the hospital, 3 doctors came sprinting out. So then, you know, it's not so bueno. So I never forgot that. From that I learned, again, I always learn, although it was my fault. From that I learned that I always put blinking LED lights front and back. I want to look like a flipping Christmas tree when I'm on a bike. I have bright clothes. When I get tired, again, fatigued in a long ride, if I have a 4-hour ride and I'm 3 hours in, really tired, I have difficulty focusing, because it is difficult to focus on traffic and things, I stop, have some sugar, have some caffeine, doesn't matter. Anything you gotta do, it's a 5-minute stop to get you home in one piece. Focused is the goal. With little time in the pool, should one focus on endurance swims or stick to technique drills? Technique drills, I believe, should be in a little amount given. And a technique drill, the more awareness you have of yourself, of proprioception, or like of your body awareness, the more they will help. Some people have really bad body awareness. They don't know if your arm is here or here, and they struggle more. So they couldn't tell you, is this drill good for you or not? But normally, you have to find drills, 1 or 2 types, maybe 3 maximum at this time, and use those for 1 month or whatever. And those drills, that's why you do those drills. You do them in the warm-up, and there's only one reason for it. They help your brain and proprioception, like your body awareness, that you swim better after. If you do drills and you don't feel like, oh, this helped me to swim better, either you have bad awareness, or most likely it's the wrong drill for you. So there's a lot of drills, gazillion drills. I drilled the hell out of myself, and I was stuck at 130 threshold for 5 years. So it's very, very individual, and drills, I believe, only help if afterwards you feel, oh, now I finally feel this catchphrase or this kick or whatever is your weakness and you want to work on. Is trying to get maximum amount of carbs possible, let's say 120 plus rather than 60 to 90, something to consider? Is it even better, be more conservative? Yeah, just a recent had a look again from Asker Jokundrup, 185. Das da mal, 185. There's some study stuff going around, but again, studies is one thing. Let's go back to 2016 or even 19 Hawaii when Jan Frodeno won. Back then, Jan Frodeno already popped 130 grams on the bike. At this point, it was I think 2019 or 16 even. He deleted everybody in Kona, as you know. One part of that, I'm certain, is because Dan Lorang, that's the cycling coach, they do internal studies with cycling teams that they don't publish, I'm sure about it. And they already figured out, wait a second here, the more carbs we put in a system, if the gut can tolerate it, the better the athlete performs. So one reason, I'm certain of it, that Jan Frodeno deleted everybody in Kona in the early days is because he was way ahead when it comes to carb intake. Now, everybody's starting to take 120 or 30 grams. It's kind of like, you hear it a lot. But again, you need to practice it. You need to find a product like Morton that works for you and test it. It's an expensive testing period. You have to know that, right? If you really want to test it, you can't say, I'm just going to take 2 gels and then I'm good. It's going to be expensive. So if you want to do 120 grams, I wouldn't know why it isn't possible. What I heard as well, if your carb intake in a normal diet is high, it does help to absorb high amount of carbs in sports nutrition. But again, I think you have to practice. I believe the more you can get in, the better without gut issues. And in the end, the thing is, even if you do it in practice for like a 5-hour session, unfortunately, only on race day, you will really know if it works. I mean, you can make it 80% sure, but you're not doing the full day in training, full intensity, nerves, and coming out to swim and salt water maybe in the mouth or whatever. So it's, yep. But I would say go as high as you can. I know there's theories that if you put 120 grams, only 80 get oxidized and those kind of things. Yes, there's all of that, and you could measure that, but I believe whatever your gut can take, slowly build it up. I think the more the better, to be honest, for Ironman. For half different story, I think. More intensity, 100 grams might be a good idea instead of going 120, 130. But for a full 120 grams on a bike, it's going to get you a long way in a marathon, I think. We're on here for a minute, huh? We have some long questions. From Joshua, gotta go into this. Not all of them, maybe. How to decide if you want to go coach, no coach, or have an advisor only? That's a good one. I mean, the biggest one is obviously financial decision. And then, I mean, I did triathlon for 12 years and I had 7 coaches. That is a lot. I committed all out for 1.5, 2 years. Did everything to the brink, what the coach wanted. Not like, going hard and doing stupid stuff. Yes, I kind of, what I can take from my accountability side when I was working, recovery just wasn't a thing. I was working too much, sleeping too little. So there was not much to do in terms of improvement because I still trained 20 hours because I wanted to. But it's hard to find a good coach. It's very hard. Just again in the podcast, a guy talked about it, Olaf Alexander, and he put it on the point. For example, he said when it came to that, unfortunately, he said some people have to learn it all by themselves, those kind of lessons, because he's the first coach when I hear all aspects. I listen to all the podcasts. I'm a big fan of a sport. I'm a student of a sport. I consume everything from all angles because I just like it. So he brings the full package, I believe, which not many can. People just see it as a scientist, but I think there's a lot more than that. It's hard to find a good coach. You have to try it. And I believe your side is still, because you shouldn't forget that you employ that coach. You pay that coach, so you're paying for performance. So if you have to give it some time, but not like years. Some say, oh, you just need more years in you and then you're going to improve. That, I believe, is a big old lie and maybe even a business model. I believe if you do 6 months with that coach and you don't see clear improvements, something is missing. Either you're not recovering, which could be, like I did. Maybe some of the coaches, obviously they were good coaches. It's not about the coaches, but it's like the stimulus in there were not right for me at the time. But it's not about me now, it's about you, if you should get a coach or an advisor. Financial decision, but then also be very aware of what you pay a product for. Whatever you buy, sometimes you forget with coaches. Make them accountable. You want to see performance. You want to see improvements, if that's your goal. If you want to see joy, you have to see that in a plan. If that is your goal, to have joy, that plan has to give you joy. If it's not, if it's a chore, not the right plan. That's my 2 cents. How to determine if a training stimulus is working? Do I need to use a lactate readings, Moxie sensor, power to heart rate statistics, field testing, how often? That again depends a little bit on your session, but I think you should see more or less constant progress in your training. Let's say you put in, because some people say, I don't believe in that, to be honest. So I don't know why that came in, that is sometimes said, for example, it's so common in triathlon, it's like, yeah, sometimes you have like a 4 weeks plateau and then you really get out of it. I don't know how that is supposed to work physiology-wise. Somebody has to explain that to me, how that chronic fatigue, then you suddenly pop out of it. I don't believe in that. So I feel like if you're not week by week seeing improvements, maybe the improvements getting smaller, meaning you can measure that with training peaks, with the efficiency factor. There are some things that kind of analyze your heart rate and your pace automatically. There's some tools in that program that show that, but you should be improving more or less every week. So if you're not getting faster, you should be the same pace with lower effort, RPE, or heart rate. If you're not having those things and you're putting in the work, you're not recovering enough. Then again, it's the same plan, because you're probably training too much to the load you have outside of the training, or you're neglecting the basics. The plan is one part of the puzzle. The biggest puzzle, and it's not fancy, is you doing the things that really suck. Doing the training is the fun part. Remember, we all love training. We love going hard. We love the training. What's hard is, those are the hard choices, and they're not fun at all. But those are the ones you got to do if you want to improve really next to work, is watch an hour less Netflix, cancel it, or do whatever. You need some balance. I don't mean no balance. But you don't have to sit 3 hours after work there, watch Netflix. Do an hour less, go to bed, and sleep an hour more. Very not fancy, but that's gonna do it for you. So a lot of people, and I was the same, slept 6 hours, worked my ass off, trained still. You're always in this hyper state. So recovery, and same with diet. People eat too little, way too little when they work full time. They don't do the basics. Most people not, because it's not fancy. You can't sell it. But I would more look for those. Forget lactate, forget Moxie, forget all those things. If you have pace, heart rate, power on the bike, great, of course. You got all you need to be 99% there. Look at Mark Allen, he didn't have a stopwatch, and he basically ran the same pace as the Norwegians do now. If he had carbon shoes, he would run the exact same. And he had nothing. How do you use auto-regulation in your training blocks? Meaning you push a bit harder when you feel great and back off on feeling flat, or just stick to the planned numbers. I read a bit about it. It's very interesting. Actually, there's some coaches, athletes, especially in the 50s, 60s, marathon runners, really interesting. It's a really nice PDF I can send you guys if you want, about past running and all those things, about 50s, 60s marathon running. And there's one athlete, he basically did it like that. He goes hard when he feels good. When he feels tired, he goes slow. That is very good. I think your training should your system should build in a way. But again, I can also adjust on the day, and you should as well. So for example, one thing you should use it, yes. So for example, if you feel in the warm-up, you should always do the warm-up, because when you're working full time, you don't know before you start a session, are you mentally depleted? I mean, body and mind is one, okay. But are you mentally depleted at this time? Or are you physically depleted? So many times after work, you're tired, you're like fed up. You most likely, although you love the sport, you most likely don't want to jump on a trainer for 90 minutes and have this hard ride. Because it's hard ride, you probably suck at it, or like it's just challenging. You probably have it in your mind since the morning or the day before. It's your key sessions of the week. You don't look forward to it. It's normal. It's challenging. You do the sport because it's a challenge. If it would be easy, everybody would do it, and you'll play football. Nah, just joking. Football's good. But definitely endurance sport is challenging with 3 sports next to work. So one tip, very basic stuff, you can jump on a bike always, no matter how you feel, unless you feel sickness. You don't train, don't even think twice. If you wake up with a sore throat, that day is in a trash can, and you take a full rest day and see the day afterwards. Maybe a walk if you feel good, most likely not. But if you do your bike session, let's say, and you feel really tired from work, very common. One reason is, did you nail your diet? Why are you so tired? Maybe you didn't nail your diet. Maybe you sleep too little. But if those things are fine and you just had a really annoying work day, which is very common, obviously, you come from work and you are mentally tired. So you always stop the thinking, you feel healthy, you feel good, you jump on the bike and you do the 20 or 15-minute warm-up. Just spin. And then again, you make a decision. If you feel in the warm-up, for example, my legs are gone, my motivation at the end of the 15-20 minutes when you get the blood moving and the hormones flowing, they're still in the trash can, the legs and everything is trash, and you have a really high-end bike that pushes the limits, makes no sense to do this session. So rather just do it all easy or aerobic, depending on your feel, and that will be the best decision for your day. So you gotta see, can your body absorb it at that time? And if you repeatedly, again, that comes down to the coach and basically failure at his side or her side, that if you consistently have a session at a day, you cannot do it, either the total training load is wrong or the session is planned on the wrong day. Because it shouldn't be the case that you constantly fail a session. Then it's the wrong plan. Okay, we got here Daniel. Daniel, thanks for the message. Great channel, love your debugs. Wondering how you approach eating and weight. Do you have weight goals for races? What made the biggest impact on your progression to the pro level? So first one, wondering how you approach eating and weight. So I have a long journey with that, right? Obviously, I came into the sport. I was always on the bigger side. I was always 78 since I was very young. I mean, from handball and not just gym, it's just how my body is, right? And I came to the sport and I look at Andreas Vreeland and all the other guys and the gazelles, and they have 4% body fat and they have nothing on them, all the time injured though, don't forget that. But they have that. And then you think, wait a second, I'm too heavy. Obviously I had that a long time. It took me a long time to shed that mentality to think you're too heavy, that it's wrong, right? So a lot of people have that are, let's say, under 80 kilo side. Actually, funnily, I had 4 years, 2019, I wrote Christian Blumenfeld a message. He wasn't the champion, wasn't anything at that point. He just won, I think, a World Cup or even that, because he was, he's smaller than me, but he's bulky. And the funny thing is the sport is so messed up to body dysmorphia. The sport is really messed up, really bad. We have to change this, real bad, when it comes to body dysmorphia and how skinny people are, constantly injured and sick. It's real bad. Even to the extent that when Christian Blumenfeld won 2020 St. George, and he was a bit swollen because he was sick before, and he looked a bit chubby, but it was swellingness, and he has a massive chest, people gave him shit, to be honest, after winning the world champs because of the body type. Quite a few. So there just see how broken the sport is. So that is you have to imagine when it comes to weight and that has to do with an insecurity in yourself and your brain, and you have to know that. So the number one goal, that's also what he answered me in the questions when I wrote him back then. He said people are looking for shortcuts with weight and those things. If you're a cyclist, different story, right? It's a little bit different. But triathlon is a strength-based sport, and health and consistency in training and racing will always beat that one race where you're 1 kilo less. And again, in this AeroTune thing, you can put the weight and you can see the difference in weight and speed to your bike time, for example. It's very interesting. So how you approach eating and weight. Number one thing is calories in, calories out. And I would say from 10 triathletes, 8 are under eating. Not eating enough, including me. I did it for a long time. Again, I thought I was too big, I was too strong. I left the gym out, body didn't change because I thought, maybe because of gym, I'm so muscular and stuff, weird. No, cut that out, nothing changed in weight or upper body. Went low carb, high fat, extreme version. Of course, I went full tilt at it. Broke me for 2 years afterwards. Got some really bad coaching advice on that front. But it was my choice because I listened, so my mistake. But I went down that road extensively. I know almost everything there's to know about this. So do you have a weight goal for races? You have to imagine, again, a weight goal. That number you just think about, because everybody has a number in their brain. You have to know there is no backup for that number in any way. You made that number up in yourself, because everybody has this number on a scale. For example, if you're 80, it might be 79. There's no reasoning behind this. It's completely irrational thinking. We all have this. Everybody has this. Because you think at 79, I'm going to be better than at 80. That is just complete garbage. So you got to know that weight is not as important as power and health. If you're a strong athlete and you can perform well, it's a very elite course, for example, I look forward to the challenge of Nice, for example. Nice as a course. Bigger guys, take the Magnuses, me and those guys, they will always be, let's say, a minute, 2 behind on the hill versus another guy. It's just physics, right? At the same power, he'll just go quicker. You need more power. You need to invest more energy to get the same pace with the smaller guys. Just physics is normal, right? But then comes the flat section. So that guy in the flat section better ride also 55k an hour, because I'm going to be doing that then. So then you catch up the time again with the same energy expenditure. So it's a tricky topic with weight. I could talk about it all day. I think it's very important to talk about it. It's important you eat enough. What make the biggest impact on your progression? Yeah, I could put the diet up there. I fine-tuned the hell out of it, even constantly still am, because it's so important. The basics are the most important. Eat, sleep, train. Hydration as well, of course. But those things, you can optimize the shit out of it, to be honest. Sorry for the swearing. But you can optimize everything with sleep and diet. Sleeping, get a weighted blanket. Massive game changer. 7 to 9 kilos. Sleep with it a month and see what happens. Those things we should improve. Sleep and diet before we start thinking, maybe I perform better with 2 kilos less. Maybe you do. You will run better. Feels a lot better to run light, 100%. Your cycling power will go away, and maybe suddenly you get this little niggle at your ankle because you're kind of in a depleted catabolic state, so in a destructive state, and suddenly your tendon's giving in and you got an injury coming. Very common amongst triathletes that are very skinny to have injuries, and everybody's surprised why that is. Is it possible? Okay, that's a complicated question. Got a few ones here. If you'll be able to get 50,000 YouTube subs by the end of 2024, what did it mean to me? Mean to you, mean to me? Yeah, it would be great, but it's the same as, I don't think it would change my happiness state in any sense. It's of course an objective pat on the back. It's always nice, means you're putting in some work and it's working, but that is an endless game. It's the same as, let's say financials on those is an endless hole, right? Let's say you reach 50,000 subs. My mind is like that. I could even win Kona tomorrow, the day afterwards, like what's next? That's just I know that about my brain. When it comes to this objective goal setting, it's an endless pit. It doesn't stop, right? So it's not something that stops. So 50,000 subs, I'll be really happy. I would celebrate for one day. The next day, I would want 100,000 subs. If I had 100,000 subs, I want 200,000 subs. It's just this endless thing. I think it's a good mindset on the one hand, but you have to be appreciative about what you have. So that's why I'm more focused on that. I'm not focused on what's in Texas, what's in Oceanside, what may be, what now might be a good race, might be a shit race. Those things are not really in my control. What's in my control is right now, I'm happy. We have 21 people here watching me babble along on a Saturday evening, and we got the technical issues sorted. So I'm appreciated. I'm in the moment. I'm focusing on those things, and whatever comes will come. And I'm doing my best, and might work, might not, but I'm doing my best. Do you monitor TSS, CTL, ATL? So those are metrics in Training Peaks. It's this program I talked about, and plan your weeks based on training volume, hours at various intensity zones, TSS or combination. I use TSS. Yes, I think it's a really nice objective one, actually. Again, if you don't have a coach, you're not going to do this yourself. It doesn't matter if I talk about it too much myself, because most people are not self-coached. There's a lot of info about it. It's quite complicated. I just don't want to confuse people here with TSS. But it is a great tool to have as an objective measure if your thresholds are right. Otherwise, it's all a bit messed up. But I think you could use training volume. I got, like most people, obsessed with the volume. I thought, if I don't train 20 hours, I'm not going to make X, Y. And then I look back, to be honest, to one of the best coaches. My first coach I ever had, I had her 4 years, the first 4 years. She got me from 11 hours to 9 hours 20 on Ironman Switzerland, very bad course, a slow course, more or less. And I qualified for Kona then. And I did that on 12 hours average back then. So yes, volume is one thing, but more important than volume and all those metrics, people get so lost in the things. The number one question you should be yourself asking is always, am I getting better? Am I getting fast? Depending what your goal is, am I getting faster? So let's say VO2 max pushing is your goal. Am I getting faster, more efficient at faster paces in the pool, swim, bike, run? Is that happening? Am I better than last week or 2 weeks ago? The answer is yes, something is a bit off. You should feel better, something should be better. If your goal is not speed, like a lot of people, the goal is aerobic conditioning, you have to see that. Are you feeling better in the long run? Do you have less soreness? Do you have a lower heart rate? Do you have a lower RPE? Do you feel mentally fresher towards the end of the run? Whatever it is, you gotta find your metrics and you gotta make an objective, not just like, oh, it was good. You gotta make an objective. And that thing always needs to trend up the needle. If not, something's missing. Either you're not recovering, eat, sleep, drink, or your training stimulus isn't right for your load. How much performance decay have you seen, if any, between individual sessions? Swim, bike, run, and bricks, for example. Performances decline when running after a long bike. I've seen some statistics indicating that running economy drops 10%. What is the best way to prepare for this on bike? So in general, performance decay between individual sessions. Yes, it is pretty individual in a sense. You have day form, and I used to be a bit too much, so I got taught by coaches too much into this day form thing, to be honest. Because that's, yes, there is day form, but maybe it's 5%, right? It's not like one day you feel amazing, the other one you feel trash. If that's the case, there's something fundamental in your training missing, I believe. So either, again, you mess up your diet, you're low on glycogen. Could be that you're training 3 days hard. Doesn't matter what the training says in the plan. If you're not refueling the carbs, you will be glycogen depleted, meaning on the 4th day, whatever the session is, your legs will be kind of this burning feeling. It feels like sore, but it's not sore. It's glycogen depletion. So there's a lot to learn on that front. But performance decay over the sessions, I mean, let's say, I can just take for me my example right now. I have 7-day cycle, and I on purpose structure the sessions in a way. For example, the first day I have a bit longer intervals on the VO2 max swim and bike, because I know they are on all fronts fresh, especially in the swim, like neuromuscular wise, I'm fresh, so I can keep higher quality for longer. But when I go into the 6th, 7th day, no matter how I turn it, I have active recovery day in there as well. No matter how well I recover, towards the end I will be more tired. That means instead of saying, okay, I do again hundreds in the pool, which I know is a much smaller chance of me hitting that with quality, I go right away to 50s. So I adjust the program in a day in a sense that I can still pump out maximum quality, but the RPE, of course, will most likely be a bit higher. That's why it's important to fully reset again through those cycles. So if you have if you're an age grouper like most people, 7-day cycle, I think when you're working, you must have one off day, 7 days straight. I did that for 2 years. I think it's most stupidest thing I've ever heard. You don't work 7 days straight, and even if it's an easy day, you don't take mentally off. Just forget the physical training side. Even from a mental standpoint, you never switch off. You wake up each morning, you know you gotta train. Even if you have Sunday off, you know you have a session or two easy, you need one full off day, 100%. That is a game changer. So those, I think, are those points. We're again on here for a minute. Okay, Mike asks, would worry if it gets too hot on a weighted blanket to sleep well. Maybe you need to sleep in a cold room then. Okay, it was a bit with the weighted blanket. I can really recommend weighted blankets. That's my last 2 cents. I think we went through all the questions in all details. If you guys got anything left, but I think we are towards the end here again. Again long, guys. Again long. Sorry for the technical issues. No idea. Did the same as last week. Classic technical stuff. Suddenly it's there. But we did it. And yeah, I wish you guys a power weekend. You probably have some good training coming up tomorrow. My last thing is, do the basics well. They are hard enough. To nail them every single day with work, with family, is hard. To, pre-cook, because that's the things nobody likes to do. Pre-cooking sucks when you're working. It's not fun at all. Mostly doesn't take long. You can pre-cook a whole week in 1 hour, or like 4 days straight in 1 hour. But those are the things that are not fancy. But those are the things, if you're the one that is goal driven and says, I want to do X, Y this year, I want to do Kona, those are the things you cannot neglect. They're not fancy. They're going to require much more discipline, and they are much harder to do, I believe, than actual training. The actual training, we love training, to be honest. If you do triathlon, you decide to do 3 sports, which is a bit cuckoo, at the same time next to work, 3 sports, you love training. You don't have a training issue, but you most likely have a recovery issue. So get that sleep in. 7 hours is not enough. 9, and at least on the weekend, no alarm. If you once a week get like a no alarm sleep in, kind of let the body wake up when he wants to wake up, with like shades down, no family, whatever if possible, or like get to bed earlier, that is a game changer. So sleep in once a week, and yeah. Good night, guys. I'm logging out. I hope you guys are well. Bye-bye.